before he's speaking on the 26th to the 28th of this month. But, Russ, is there a way you can sort of do a small, I don't know what you would call it, like a blurb for him to put the two, because that's what they're doing with MUFON. They're putting and you can help look at this because you're an excellent researcher, on how they're pulling in the mind, the consciousness, the soul, the ERT, the experiencers research teams with Kathy Martin on their team, MUFON, versus ours, which we're all independent contractors. We're our independent agents and consultants with ACO. You know, we're ACO Association, more integrative medicine, more metaphysical, more spiritual, and UFO Association, which is really, really old, but I started it with George Filer and Stanton Friedman, which were both people that said, please don't forget our work and working with us. And, you know, I was talking to Stan back when he was writing books, but he and I never got one done, but I put a couple of his things in mind. But you see what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to bridge like I tried to do with Ken and Richard, George Filer and him, like I do a Power of Three with you, Russ, and Ken here. What would be your part? Can you bring us together here, Russ? You know what I'm saying? How do you bring it together?
Well, I'm not really sure what you're asking. You've mentioned what we all three had in common, and I would say the near-death experiences and the knowledge that this world isn't all there is, that when you physically pass, you find yourself waking up, just like you wake up in the morning from a dream. When your body dies, you just find yourself in this other reality, and you go, oh, okay. It's a realm that you're very familiar with, and that's probably why Steve Jobs, when he was passing, went, oh, wow. You know, it's like there is something after this. This is not the end. So we have that in common. We have an interest in the UFO phenomena and ETs and interdimensionals, and how it may tie in with Earth's religions, and that's quite a deep subject because there's a deep ancient history with intervention in various places, both genetically and spiritually. So one of them, would be between Homo erectus walked the Earth for almost 2 million years, and they only had one piece of technology, and that tells me that there was no competition amongst them, because it's the competition and the one-upsmanship that perpetrates an improvement in technology, because you're always looking for a device to kill your neighbor with better before they get you. It's out of fear. And if they just had a bifaced axe for 2 million years, that tells me that they were peaceful and traveled around in little clans. But somewhere along the line, the ends of chromosome number 2, called the telomeres, were fused, and the overlapping code was expertly deleted. So there's definitely an ET intervention point between Homo erectus and Homo sapiens. So that's something that the three of us have in common, is ancient history, possible lost chapter in human civilization, our galactic heritage, possibly from Lyra or wherever, based on certain channeled information. I'm not somebody that expects perfection from channeled material, because it's coming through a human brain, and anything that comes through a human brain is going to be imperfect. But just like it doesn't matter.
It's true.
It
what
doesn't
they
matter
can hold.
If you're reading fiction or nonfiction, if you're reading it as a reader, you're only going to accept what resonates with you. So it doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction or anything in between. If an idea comes to you based on your reading that means something to you internally, you're going to assimilate it and keep it and make it a part of your being, no matter where it came from. There's several channeled works that I have a real affinity for. One would be the Urantia book, and the other would be the Oahspe Bible, and the other one would be the Prism of Lyra, or the Law of One, the raw material. I found that just excellent source of information about the different densities. And the interesting thing about the Law of One material is that it correlates with Dr. Nick Bostrom's idea about the running ancestor simulations from the distant future, because the raw material says each one of us has a sixth density higher self that exists in what we would call the distant future. And this higher self of ours is trying to go from sixth to seventh density, which is the cosmic to the portal to the cosmic supermind. And it's needing the lessons that we're learning here in this lifetime to enable it to go forward itself. So we're all actually in service to our higher selves. And then you get into the idea that this life of mine might not be the only person living on Earth or possibly another planet that's providing an information feed for the higher self that I met on August 18th of 2009. So I know this being exists. I know it's me, but there may also be other souls that are like a group soul complex that are feeding information into this higher entity. So we're at a unique point in history right now where the science is connecting with metaphysics, and quantum mechanics is intersecting with consciousness, and it's all coming together. And there's a lot to learn, and that's why, when I listen to somebody's testimony, whether it's on TV or in person, I try not to judge at all, and I just file it away. Maybe I can use it as a later date. Maybe it'll connect a dot, with somebody in the future, and then I'll know that person was telling the truth. For example, right now I'm trying to learn a lot about time and how time operates, and there's an Italian physicist.
What do you think of that guy I gave you, Anthony Peake? Did you like him?
I haven't looked into him yet.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I haven't looked into him
Okay.
yet.
Well,
no.
In a relationship with our intimate selves, right? And in a relationship with what we're doing here with the abduction scenario or the higher self scenario. But, yeah, you're right. Now, a lot of people use the Law of One in the raw material. Who was the original writer of that in your mind's eye? Because David Wilcock uses it over and over again, if you're familiar with David Wilcock.
Well, it was an engineer, David Elkins. They wrote another book called The Secrets of the UFOs that's really, really good. But Carla Ruckert, back in 1981, was the actual channel, and they portrayed themselves as having an existence in Egypt. The creators of the pyramids, they created them by thought. And, who knows? Some of it resonates, and some of it, I'm not so sure about that.
Right.
Whoever
each soul resonates on various frequencies. Would you agree or disagree?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's the comforting thing about passing from here is you're going to be around people that are of a similar level of advancement to you. I've noticed that just in this life. When I buy a Volkswagen, all of a sudden everybody I know has a Volkswagen. I shave my head, and all of a sudden I was at a table in a restaurant, and every guy around me had a shaved head. It's like there's this law of attraction going on, both physically and spiritually, where you're always kind of like in the same boat with the other people. And it's no different when you pass. It's like everybody advances at their own speed, and when your body dies, you just find yourself around familiar beings that accept you in a loving way.
May come back. Yeah, may come back, may not.
Yeah.
Listen, we've got interstellar, intergalactic, and advanced multidimensionals, and whether we could travel in time or not, we're working on that. And there's a Professor Mallet that's working on plasma and time travel and all that. So we'll get into all that. I'd like to have you back. We're out of time, and I apologize. I owe you at least 30 minutes. But, I wanted to get farther on the very levels and dimensions that we're simulating in this reality. Whether paranoia sets in or not, we're going to discuss it and not worry about the haters. So I'd like to have you back if you'd care to as a caregiver, and make sure that we list you and at least in the ACO with your integrative medicine and you as a caregiver and working in the medical field and helping people. So you're definitely, I guess with my starseeds, you'd be a light worker and truth seeker as well. So we have light workers and truth seekers. But have you had a chance to look at ACO Association at all, just putting yourself, I know you're in social media with me, but have you had a chance to look at my blog?
No, you mentioned a couple things today through Facebook Messenger that I need to look up. I need to look up Anthony Peake and the AOC and all that. I'm unfamiliar with it. So.
Okay, I've started the UFO Association separate, but it's really, really old. But it was back in the day. But, people changed, and I've shut and flattened down a lot of my websites, over 175, I think, from the beginning and inception of time when I used computers before. We had the military, the DARPA, and we had Sun Systems, and then we went to Wing. But it was way back before Trin Cobol and then all that in the government. But now I was told to use computers and do communications, so I feel like I'm doing what I'm doing. But I want to pull together those that want to be related to whatever we're doing here. So I call it the ACO Club because anybody that's not in me, in my physical 3D body, whether they're other dimensionals or universal souls such as yourself and Ken, I don't know how to do it. So I put agents, consultants, and organizers with my Ascension Center organization, and just put ACO Club as my social club. So I've been promoting that for, at least since 2012, when I came out with my book 2012 and Beyond. But I don't know that how to do this. So I'm saying we're going to do an author's book club. So I'd like to put your book on that in Ken's and hopefully move forward with the ACO Club. But I don't know. A lot of people don't want to join other people, but they do free social media and stuff. And I'm trying to grandfather in those that are friends of mine. So I guess, Russ, would you be considered a friend of mine, even though we're just social media and radio?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, feel free to call me personally anytime. You know, you can fill me in on what you're doing and, you know, figure something out.
Okay. Well, I've asked Ken to sort of help me with all these social media groups because we've got so many thousands of people that consider themselves my friends, and I don't know how to do this the next level. So just consider it, the bridge that we're talking about between, well, the two books that Ken's wrote. You know, there's a lot of past life regression, physical therapy, and I like consciousness and working on neuro and soul and the spirit part, and Tommy likes to concentrate on the spiritual aspects and the soul, and he's done a lot of work on world information and, I guess, theology. So let me just real quick mention to you, Russ, that I liked the way that Bob O'Dean, he separated. He knew he was his historian, and he had theology, and he did history, literature, geology, mythology, theology, science, and philosophy. And I finally wrote that down. He said he wasn't a prophet or preacher or proselyting, but, you know, he did believe alien civilizations exist, and that was my message, that they do, and we're moving forward together with communication. So I was considered a communication officer in this life. So if you could help me get from Bob O'Dean to this and use the ACO Club, I'd really appreciate it. And I've asked Ken to help us. So, Ken, is it okay if Russ gets in touch with you on Facebook? Are y'all friends already, Russ? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check. It might be. I probably friended 2 or 3 people, or I accept just about every request, except when I go there and I find it's just like selfies from girls. I don't know what they're up to, but I don't have any interest in that, so I just delete them. But if they're a real person and they've got posts that show that they have an internal life and they're interested in things, I always accept their friendship. So if Ken had sent me a friend request, I'm sure I accepted it. But, you know, after tonight we can be sure.
Okay, Ken, could you look up Russell Brinegar, and maybe we can get Russ, because Russ is highly intelligent, very deep researcher. And Russ, would you consider yourself, like we consider ourselves metaphysicians? You know, you look for these titles to help do your tag words for social media, but I'm trying to bring friends together in a social club, but I'm looking for tag words and how to get them to come together for learning and trust. But are you a metaphysician or no?
Since 2009, I just consider myself a student. You know, I feel like that day that happened to me, I accepted that we live in an interdimensional reality, but I'm not quite sure, you know, what to make of that. And I've spent a lot of time in the last decade since this happened of reading about what other people think about it and kind of filing it away. And I find that the near-death experiences are very common. I found out through the literature that it's very common to have been presented with a choice, whether to move on or to stay here. That happens to a lot of people. So those types of things are very confirming. You know, when you have a weird experience, it just doesn't even fall into your paradigm of reality like I had. You want to know if there's other people that have experienced the same thing. And I've got into the scientific aspect of the ketamine theories and all the poo-poo, the woo-woo, you know, everything about it. So I consider myself a student of the metaphysical worlds and a student as of late of quantum mechanics. I ran into an Italian physicist named Carlo Rovelli, and it started out, I bought a book by a futurist, Russian futurist named Alex Volkolov. He wrote a book called The Scintillect Hypothesis, and it's really information rich. I It's about a 300-some page book, and I've only made it to about page 120 because I got sidetracked with 3 audio books by Carlo Rovelli, who explains how time works. And that has actually opened me up to some of these stories about the 20 and back programs and all that, because he confirms that there is such a thing as a temporal